All right, so previously I added some physics to this scene, and I added a rigid body to this bag so that when it collided with the rigid body, the passive rigid body that was on this plane, we get something like this, and that's really great. But it's a little bit, it's not quite what I would hope, um, because it's just bam, fall hits, and other than a little bit of jiggling that occurs, it just kind of keeps its shape, and it doesn't seem quite realistic. So let's go ahead and rather than sticking with just doing a rigid body, maybe it's time to consider doing either a cloth or a soft body simulation. In this case, soft body would probably be the most appropriate. So I think I'll do that um, in a new scene and try to mic the settings in a little bit so that maybe we get a little bit less lagginess as we're playing around with it, just with the extra objects and materials and anything else that may be going on. So, new scene. And I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to grab the cube on Z and we'll move it up a bit. While I'm at it, I can tab into the item and let's go ahead and subdivide. And we'll just, go up to 10. I think that's great. And then I'll hit 7 on my keypad to get a top view. I'm going to box select and I'm going to make sure my proportional editing is on. And I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to scale this a little bit just to kind of get it less of a cube shape. And maybe with proportional editing off, I'll scale it down just a touch more, not that much. And then back in object mode, maybe we'll go ahead and scale this a bit on Y. Make it a little narrower, a little bit more like the bag thing that I had going on in the other scene. And then let's go ahead and add a plane and scale that up. All right, so with that done, let's go ahead and add some physics. So I'm going to go to this item and I'm going to add a soft body to it. And let's just go ahead and push play right away, see what happens. All right, well, something's going on, but it's sort of just staying in the same location near its origin. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll turn off its goal so that it knows it doesn't have to stay where it starts. Now if we go ahead and push play, all right, it's falling. So we need to make sure that it will collide with this. Previously, what I did was I had a rigid body. In this case, I'm going to try just putting a collision on, and we'll see what happens there. Awesome. So collision's working. Soft body's definitely working, but we got some crazy stuff going on. First of all, it just went into a pile of mush like it's cloth. But secondly, we see there's like geometry overlapping. Like there's some anomalies occurring. So one of the things that we can do, let's pause this, take it back to the beginning, and we can check the box for self-collision. So that way, the geometry won't like push through itself, and it'll know that it's got to retain uh, some level of reality in how it can that it can't just go through itself. So now if we go ahead and push play, much better, right? Still dropping in on itself, but we are moving in the right direction. So we'll go ahead and we will look at some of the other options that we have. So for edges, if I click on the arrow, I can make a few changes there. One of the things that we can do is we can adjust the bending. So for example, if I grab the bending and take it up a bit and push play, now it's slowing down just a little bit as it's recalculating things, but we can see that that bending is helping it to try to retain its shape a little bit more. So let's go ahead and take that up quite a bit. All right, maybe up towards the top of the range, which I believe is 10. We'll go ahead and push play, let it do its thing. All right, much better. I like that. Let's move this down a little bit so we got a better view of it. The other thing that we can do too is look at plasticity. So if we add a little bit of plasticity to this, it's going to work a little bit harder to kind of retain and go back to its original shape. So if I crank that plasticity up quite a bit, let's just put it up there, push play, let it reset. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? Let's put this back at the beginning. And instead of having 250 frames, let's just take this down to like 40 or something so that we got less of a wait time to see what's happening. So let's go ahead and push play. It's kind of figuring out. There we go. Okay, so that's what we have right there. Let's put that back to the beginning. And just as an example, if I put bending back down to a lower number, but leave plasticity high, what do we have then? All right, so we definitely do need the blending or the bending. So let's take that back up to a higher value. And that's great. The other thing that we should probably consider is because even with this, it's still pretty flexible. And I'm imagining that if this thing is full, it'll be just a little stiffer and a little bit more rigid. And it so happens that there is a setting right here for stiffness. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to check the box. And let's go ahead and push play and see how that changes things. All right. Maybe I just nudge that down a bit. Give it a little bit of give. And we get something a little bit like that. All right, so that's got some potential. Now, the other thing that I want to consider is there is also these push and pull settings. And this can affect things like bounciness. If you're trying to simulate, a rubber ball or something like that, these numbers can have a pretty dramatic impact. So if I take this pull, for example, and crank it up quite a bit, let's see what we get. Okay, so obviously that's not going to work for us. Now let's just take that back down to the 0.5 that it was at, and let's take the push up quite a ways. And that doesn't quite work either, does it? All right, so having explored those, let's take that back to its original settings, and let's actually see what happens when these are gone. All right, going to the other extreme. All right, so that seems to have undone a lot of what we've done. So let's go back to the original values, and we'll play with them from there and be a little more gentle in what we do. All right, so what I think I'm going to do with the push value is take it down a little bit. And the pull value, I think I'm going to take down quite a bit. Try something like that, maybe a 0.1 and a 0.4. Let's go ahead and push play and see what we get. Now there's a little bit of jiggling going on, but I think something along these lines at least comes closer to the mark. It gets me kind of where I'd like to go. So it's not quite where I want to be exactly, but this at least gets a little bit more realistic. So I think the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and try applying this or something like this to the actual bag project that we're working on, and I'll do that next.